Well, upon further inspection, I noticed that maybe the Lyft job wasn't such a good idea. So I kind of outed that one. That was probably the worst decision I think I could have made ever in the history of decisions because it turned out to be something not acceptable as far as the job market goes because, well, they start you out in debt. And if you have ever been in that position and you know that there's not such a good way for you to make up the ends or money, so to speak, to cover your debt that they impose upon you on your first day, um, it's not a very good thing, not a very good turnout. So I don't see the benefit to that or the sane motion for that to be something good or even acceptable in today's times. So it's pretty close to slavery, awful close, especially if you don't live in an area where there's a lot of hot rides. So it's hard to gauge something that should be simple, that should be a fairly easy job to do. It shouldn't be that hard. So just to gauge yourself in anything in life, you need to weigh the pros and cons accordingly and appropriately. So not having that ability to get things to roll the right direction is kind of hard to understand and try to get to that point. So how I did it was I understood that I don't have the money for gas. So I can't throw the gas in the car if I don't have it. And I can't drive or give rides to people if I don't have gas in my car. So if I don't have gas in my car and I can't give people rides, it stands to reason to think that there is no way out of this debt cycle, especially if you don't live in a heavily populated area where the Lyft rides are more prominent. So it would stand to reason that someone in my position, saying in Sacramento area, that it's not exactly a very lucrative career for you if you don't own your own car. So, not that I have any bad experience per se with Lyft as a company. I have a bad experience with Lyft as its employed personnel that work, say, at the Lyft rental pickup area at Pet Boys was a very rough and poor experience, both from an employee standpoint and it's potentially not going to work out good for them if they keep going in this direction because it's not something that is preferential to someone who's just coming into the business who may or may not have another job. So I don't understand how this hasn't been an issue until now, or I can't believe that I'm the only one that's come across this problem, which I haven't. I'm not the only person the only person that's come across this problem. I've seen several reviews on the Google page for Lyft that there are more than just me. There's lots of folks that have the same problem with them. So maybe the rental and express drive area in Lyft is not such a good business venture for anyone coming into the job. If you have your own car, that's a different story. If you own your own car, that's a whole different ballgame. So if you own your car, then sure, maybe it's a good job for you. If you don't mind footing the bill for the gas and footing the bill for all repairs and whatever, because it's your car, and even maybe some ridiculous price for insurance. I'm not exactly sure how that works yet because I haven't tried it from my own car perspective. I do foresee taking rides in the future from other Lyft drivers because I don't have a car, so taking rides is essentially going to be part of my day, unfortunately. So I'll probably have the chance to interview a driver who may or may not own their own car. So when I get to that point and I have talked to someone who actually owns their car and they can give me an accurate representation of what they actually earn, then I'll post that video up and you'll have that interview post haste. Exactly. So I just wanted to come up with at least some opinions on whether or not, driving Lyft with a rental car is a good idea. And from my experience, it's not. So do I think Lyft is a bad company because of this? No. I don't think Lyft's a bad company. So it's a poor experience from the rental side, and they need to know these reviews. They need to understand that it's not very lucrative for someone who doesn't have another job or doesn't have, say, their own car. So it's very, it's pretty obvious to me that it's not a good idea. So I don't want to keep people thinking that this is just a review of the Lyft driver rental, because it's more or less a company review of the entire company. They have good intentions. They have good ideas, but the ideas and implementation aren't always that similar. So we have to understand that once we feel out our ideas and field test them, and we see that in certain areas they don't work, then it would stand to reason to block a person from having the ability to do that or to take that offer in that area, just so to speak. So I haven't really lost anything, to be honest with you. I just lost a little bit of time and the promise of a good career that may or may not have turned out to make any money. Turns out it's just not going to work well for anyone like me. So it essentially was a ripoff. Probably not intended. I'm sure it wasn't intended by Lyft to rip me off. I'm sure. But it happened, okay? $39 a day or $29 a day, whatever it factored out to be. I would say somewhere in the realm of in between there, a few dollars here or there. Actual rental fees stated on my receipt was $29 a day. So that's a little heavy-handed for a car that I'm supposed to be driving around town taking rides, especially when I don't have the money for gas. So, if you don't have another job or you don't work a full-time job and you're doing Lyft, they said the rental program's probably more geared to a full-time driver than a part-time. So the logic just doesn't match up to what's actually presented. So that being said, anyone from the higher ups in Lyft, anyone who's even gonna watch this video, it may not get back to someone in the higher ups, but I do want them to know that the rental idea is good, but with poor implementation and not proper oversight, this is the result that you carry. So it's not something that I was intending to do or that I even set out to do. I didn't just get this job to give Lyft a bad review. I wanted this job and I wanted it to work out because I love to drive. I mean, I used to do this for a living back east. So it's not hard to guess that it was not something I was intending to quit very easily or give up on. I don't like doing that. I feel bad if I leave a job without giving it the full attention. And I gave it my full attention for certain days. And for the X amount of days that I gave it my full attention, it did not come to the aforementioned promise that they had for anyone who drove for Lyft. You could earn up to $1,000 a week is what they said. But what actually turned out, even if I worked, sat in the car for 5 hours during prime time in the morning and 5 hours during prime time in the evening, that turns or translates into 10 hours total that I spent. Okay. I didn't work a single ride in the morning on my first day. Not on the Monday. Sunday I had a better day. I earned about probably $60, close to $60, $58 or $57 and some change in rides on Sunday. That was pretty good. Pretty lucrative on Sunday because I didn't have many rides. I took maybe 7 or 8, if I think correctly. I could be wrong because I have since deleted the driver app from my phone to save room. So yeah, I can re-download and log back in at any time. So it's not like I quit the job today. I just need to get my own car first. So realistically, the reviews for this driver option to rent and drive, express drive, is not a good idea, especially if you're not prepared to dump money in gas and to spend $230, $240, depending on the car, a week in your rental. So that being said, I know that there are a lot of folks considering it, and it seems like a very tempting offer. But the point is that it's just not there. There's no meat and potatoes. You'd be scratching an empty plate. Okay, so that's the gist of it, and that's about the size of what happened. And it's not exactly something I like or that I appreciate, even in the slightest, for no one at the Lyft hub or no one anywhere that I spoke to someone in person having a colorful or even helpful opinion based on what I experienced. It was just, for the lack of a better word, it was quite abhorrent and quite useless to even have them in the office. Why would they be sitting there taking up a desk space, claiming they work for Lyft when they're not actually doing anything but harming the company further by not having prepared opinions or prepared statements for any question a Lyft driver may have in regard to any policy or procedure that they may represent. So, be that as it may, I don't want to skirt responsibility away from them or away from myself. I know that if I had lived in an area like San Diego or Los Angeles, like I used to, if I had lived in Los Angeles or had the car in LA, I may have stood another chance of making a pretty hefty outcome. I could have made some money living in a larger city, but being so spread out in the urban sprawl of Sacramento, it's not a good position for you to take, especially not if you're a driver and you want a job. Driving your own car might be more promising because you don't make your payment each week. You make your payment for your own car once a month along with your insurance. It's once a month bill that you have to prepare for, and you have plenty of time to build that up. So it's probably more lucrative on the owner of owning your own car end rather than renting it. So that I wanted to clear up. But still, my review for them, very poor implementation of this procedure, very poor implementation of any sort of help or any sort of guidance for drivers. And I didn't hear about the areas or cities they were supposed to that you should drive in with a rental car until after I had turned my car in. So not helpful, not in the slightest. I think you guys might need to train your people better, or at least have someone who knows what they're doing in the office, that's sitting in that Lyft hub. At least have someone that knows what they're doing there, because that's more preferable than someone who's going to argue with you over policy procedure when you've read the policy and you've read the procedure. I don't think it's something that's it's not an arguable statement, not when I've already found in the fine print what is actually true and what isn't true based on what they were speaking. So yeah, maybe I'm too smart for the job, probably, but I do know that there is potential for it on the the owning of your own car end. That's probably a better deal. So if you're considering it and you want to drive for Lyft, I do suggest it. It's a decent company. Their payout schedule seems to be quite easy to understand and use, and you can enter your bank information, whatever, and right on the app. You don't need to sign any paperwork or give that to people in person or whatnot. You don't run the risk of anyone stealing your credit card number or things like that. So they do take good care of the personal information. They are quite safe to use, but by no means is this a criticism of Lyft as a company. This is a criticism of Lyft as an implementation of their rental drive agreement through Express Drive. It feels like it was rushed and not well thought out to help the driver. So in case you hadn't realized, Lyft, this goes to the company now. Your drivers are the reason you exist. If you had no drivers, you wouldn't have any company. And if you're going to base all of your company off autonomous vehicles, I still think you're missing the mark, and you're going to upset a lot of folks. So it's probably not a very good idea to do that. I think there are other places for autonomy. Cars are just not one of them. I don't think it's very smart or safe to have that implementation in a car, because anything that you have to operate that can kill someone else and weighs more than the average car because of the computer size, or weighs more than a person per se, is dangerous. That you need human interaction or intervention to control that car in such a way that would be preferable and safe, because there's no replacement for the human mind. There's no replacement for cognition, for sentience, not even a computer. Maybe you can do that sort of thing with a mechanized intelligence for, say, law enforcement, or say government practices, or implementation of a judiciary committee that is comprised of a computer brain that helps make final decisions more logically and less emotionally driven, and without the possibility of the computer molesting children. So it's kind of obvious to me where we need the autonomy. It's in the government, not in a car. So I can't be the only person that thinks that way. And I know I'm not the only person that's thought that. I mean, look at Star Trek, for Christ's sake. The future of our people can be that great, at least on the awesomeness of how the social structure went and worked in the future, in the Star Trek presented future. It's not far off, and it's not hard to understand it. That can be implemented with an emotionless, Vulcan-like computer that doesn't let human emotion, things like greed, lust, power, anger, animosity, it doesn't let those things control it. It doesn't lead by those emotions. Computers are emotionless, which is why the Vulcans were such a preferable race to run governments and to be our friends, and why they waited until we invented, light speed travel or warp drive before they could come and see us. So it's pretty obvious to me that it's preferable to have a computer that runs the more direct, impactful jobs for human society than to operate it inside a car. It seems like a low job for an autonomous person or a sentient being that's not human. I also disagree with it being implemented in a fast food setting, because if you're taking away the driver jobs, if you're taking away the other careers that don't make any sense, then why would you bother taking all of the lower class people, everyone like me that works a little shorthand job at a mall, or a little shorthand job at a restaurant, or a little shorthand job at a grocery store, or a department store, or a parts store that sells parts for cars. Why would you take that job away from us? Because all that's going to do is create more poverty. All it's going to do is create a more angry mob of people that can't make their car payments, can't take their kids to games, they can't buy the new tech things, they can't do anything without a job. So I think it's pretty obvious what you're going to create if this ever happens. You're going to create an angry mob of people, and a mass of us are going to start looking to who's in control and try to overthrow that control and usurp them from the throne of control and re-implement this strategy in a better and much more useful and much more helpful way to human society, rather than to the end of detriment, which is exactly what's going to occur if you put an autonomous person in a car. Sorry, it's just not the best move for your company, and it's definitely not ready for that to happen. So I think maybe in the future, once we can understand that every human's need and goal can be met by a pension, that at least you can get rid of money, and it just is something that needs to occur. You need to have food, you need to have shelter, you need to have all of those things: clothes, food, and shelter. Now, the extra stuff, the luxuries in life, can be met with certain, achievements in your societal view. I don't think social credit's the way to go either. So I think the Chinese have hit and missed the mark on this one. Okay. I don't think that a more socialist government or a more fascist government is what we need. I think what we need, okay, is smarter people in office, more intelligent people in control. Better yet, what we need is the singularity to occur and the artificial intelligence or mechanized intelligence to take control of the job that humans have no business being involved with. Okay? Thank you.